Hello everybody, my name is Dorian, but please just call me Dora. So before we delve into today's vlog, I want to mention that it is December and it's time for us, our team, Team Vault Hunters, to do Extra Life. Extra Life, for those of you who don't know, is a charity event that myself and my friends take part in every year. I think this is our third year doing it. And what happens is we raise money for our local Children's Miracle Network hospital, which for us is the LA Children's Hospital. We make a bunch of bottle cap buttons to give away as thank yous for that, as well as other rewards, which will be revealed within the next couple of weeks. Like I said, we will actually be performing our gaming marathon on New Year's Eve, so please join us then. I will leave more information, including a link, in the description box. The link will take you to our site. I also encourage you to check out the story behind it because it will make you cry, because it makes me cry. So anyways, now that we're done with that, on to the main event. This week's vlog is about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. Look, it was a really bad movie. It was, there were so many things about it that were so bad. The green screens were terrible. Indy trying to not change with the times was terrible. The atomic thing was really dumb. The Jeep battle where they just went through miles of forest without running into anything was weird and awkward, as were the attacks by the monkeys and the ants. Now, I have a theory as to why there was the attacks by monkeys and ants, but let's get into why I actually watched the movie. So I watched the movie because I'm a big nerd, not just because I'm an Indiana Jones fan. I did a huge eye roll when it originally came out. My friend took me to go see the Indiana Jones exhibit, which is at least 4 or 5 years later, and by then I was full-blown nerd, watching Ancient Aliens and everything. When we came to the part of the exhibit that had to do with the Kingdom of Crystal Skulls, I got really excited because I didn't realize it was about aliens, and I never realized that I was so into aliens. So this movie is actually quite topical and relevant to the 50s, which is when it takes place, which makes sense because Indiana Jones is really old by then. And in the 50s, it was a big deal because Battle over LA had just happened. Yes, it's a movie, but it's a movie based on actual events. There was an unidentified flying object over the city of Los Angeles, just kind of off the coast. Nobody could figure out where it came from or what it was because it was maneuvering way too fast, and they kept shooting missiles and stuff at it, and napalm ended up everywhere. There were 1,000 eyewitnesses, and it was a really difficult story for them to cover up. There had been mass spottings of UFOs flying over the White House and Pentagon at the time. Roswell had just happened, so aliens, super topical in the 50s, which is why it makes sense, and which is kind of cool because now Indy is dealing with historically current events, which is really weird. So what the movie starts touching on is the ancient astronauts theory about the advancement of the old historical civilizations like the Sumerians and the Mayans and the Incans. Theories are the reason they were so advanced at that time, when there was no technology, the reason they were able to move such massive rocks and stuff was because of alien technology. Also in the 30s, the reason for the Ukrainian lady is because in the 30s, there's a rumor that Hitler had gotten a hold of an alien spacecraft that had crashed in Germany. And he had his scientists and engineers trying to backwards engineer the spaceship so that they could utilize the technology to help win the war. This is a theory as to why all of their stuff was so much more advanced than ours, is because he was into the occult and aliens and believed. And also there were a lot of rumors of Foo Fighters. This is where the name from the band comes from, people. Foo Fighters were orbs that flew around the different aircraft in World War II, causing mechanical malfunctions with the instruments that helped them navigate. And that's one of the things that's so cool about it. As they walk through one of the temples in El Dorado, they show you all the ancient alien stuff. So Egyptian artifacts from India with the Buddha and stuff like that. Pretty much every culture believes that their culture, every really old culture like the Incas, Native Americans also believe this. They believe that they were from the star people and of the star people, and they worshipped the star people, aka aliens or extraterrestrials, guys. Extraterrestrial beings. It had to be the extraterrestrials. So that is what's so cool. The concept and the idea of this movie is actually quite fantastic. It's probably one of the better ones, and it was the only place you could really go after after The Last Crusade. It was really one of the only places that you could go, especially in the 50s, which is why it's so cool. And the cool thing about the crystal skulls is it is something that's really inexplicable. There's something like 13 crystal skulls across the world, and they can't explain how it was these were created. And that's a really big mystery in science, is how they could have been perfectly carved and against the grain with no markings for tools or anything like that, which they briefly explain in the movie. Now, as for those terrible scenes with the ants and the monkeys, why? For the scenes, why? My theory is because they very briefly explain the Nazca lines, which are geoglyphs, meaning that they are pictures that you can only see from the sky that are on the ground. And nobody's really sure why they were created or why they exist. But I think the reason they have that really awful scene is because they cross from one territory into the other. There's one that's in the shape of a monkey and one in the shape of an ant. And they hint very briefly in the movie that El Dorado, thanks Homer, is located near those. So that's the only reason I could think. Creators of this movie, just so you know, if you're not going to explain it properly, probably just ditch the scene, because really it's just going to make the movie flop, in case you guys were wondering. So it was a wonderful concept, badly executed. I hope this explains a little bit for those of you who aren't quite as deep in the nerd world as I am, and maybe will help you give it a second chance. I don't know. Anyways, this is Dorian signing off. Have a great one, guys.